Life of David Livingston, Part 57. Oh, quote, when Sir Roderick Murchison proposed to me the examination of the watershed of South Central Africa, I indicated. Who is this quote from? I really don't know. When Sir Roderick Murchison proposed to me the examination of the watershed of South Central Africa, I indicated the true scientific mode of ascertaining the correct position of the fountains in the Nile. The problem put thus had a charm for my mind. I had no theory on the subject and was prepared to find the watershed immediately to the south of Spekes Lake or anywhere else. The dividing line between the drainage north and south was unknown and a fit object for exploration. I recommended Dr. Kirk for the task, and having declined, I ultimately accepted it myself in the belief that I could in 2 years pass across the head of Nyassa, examine the watershed, and in returning begin a benevolent mission on the slope back again to the sea. Had I known all the toil, hunger, hardship, and time involved in getting a clear idea of the drainage, I might have preferred a straight waistcoat and head shaved and a blister on it to undertaking this task. The watershed is 800 miles long and west to east. Forward, backward, sideways I went in a route which can never be put down altogether. I had to feel my way, and every step of the way was generally groping in the dark, for who cared where the river ran? Native wars were a great hindrance, unsuitable, cowardly attendants, and an intolerable drag to both mind and body. It's more difficult to get reasonable evidence of the cannibalism of the Manyeme than might be imagined. I have tried ever since I came to see human flesh, either cooked or eaten, but in vain. A finger wrapped up in a leaf was all that rewarded my search and offers of payment. This was probably a chance taken by a party which killed a man in revenge. The occurrence of graves frees a district from this imputation. Their absence is suspicious, but in the Bakwain country a grave is never seen, and the people are not cannibals. Had I believed 1/10 part of the tales of the Manyeme by the traders and the tribes in their vicinity, I might not have ventured among them. My mother never frightened me with the bogey, so I am not subject to bogey phobia, in which disease everything horrible is believed if imputed to the black skin. It is epidemic in Jamaica. It is no wonder that the Portuguese gained so little knowledge of this country and the drainage into the Nile. Their 3 visits to Kazembe were simply slaving expeditions. They inquired for ivory and slaves and heard of nothing else. Gentlemen of good principles at Lisbon will now feel sorry that no higher objects animated their countrymen. But as to nation, they had no higher aim or in reference to us on the Shire than by thwarting our efforts by murder and arson till all the people were risked of life and fortune to elevate were swept away. I felt certain that the watershed held the solution of our problem, not because it was wished that the watershed be examined, but because I had already discovered the chief sources of the Zambezi and the southern sources of the Congo. The Nile, I felt persuaded, would not be essentially different. The high flanking ridges of the valleys of these rivers are repeated in those that begin at Katanga and the country of Basanago. The theory as to the form of the continent has a more limited application than I thought it had from the observations made in my great journey from Loando to Quilomane. The Lualaba is a central line of drainage of the Great Nile Valley. It begins in 10 degrees 12 south, flows through Lake Bangweloa, then through Lake Morio to become itself a great lake river, one of the headwaters of the River of Egypt. West of this, there are two large rivers of the same name. These two Lualabas united from a large lake, Lake Lincoln. I used the names of the two great and good men, Palmerston and Lincoln, in loving admiration, and as if to place my poor garland of love on their tombs. These two rivers rise by two fountains, which by anticipation I named Bartle Ferrers, because he abolished slavery in skinned India, and Young's fountains. About 10 miles south of these rise two other fountains. One is that of the Limaba, or Upper Zambezi. The other gives rise to the Kafui. These I named Palmerston and Oswell, which flow into Zambezi. These four fountains are probably the Nile fountains, which were described to Herodotus as unfathomable and sending out a half the water to Egypt, the other half to inner Ethiopia. I have only to do this part to finish up the whole discovery, and I have a sore longing to return homewards. I am brought to a strand by my worthless attendants, who, besides deserting, became eager slave hunters of their own countrymen. They all had been slaves and of the criminal class in Africa, and went with me to avoid being enslaved again and made to work. Their eager slave hunting where no danger was incurred was to ingratiate themselves with the Arabs. Assuredly, if the freedom in America turn out well, it will be from having been taught to work and to like it as we do. My worthies have been petted, coddled, and allowed to live in idleness from mistaken kindness, and on leaving the school sent me an autonomous letter, abusing the master who had fed, clothed, and taught them for years. Had we been treated as they were, we should have been useless. I have traveled with all sorts of Africans, and we soon became attached to each other. My present lot are exceptions, not fair specimens of Africans. My love to Sarah and the children. I have no letters from home for years, except some 3 years old. I fear that a large packet with one for you I sent from Ujiji was destroyed by the Arab governor, who sent one of his men to plunder my goods, and then kept a long box containing 2 English guns, medicines, letters, and dispatches. Though I sent it twice, he does not want evidence of his theft to go to the coast, and he kept a man who witnessed the plundering as well as the packet, and will turn out right at last. All would turn out right at last, I hope. Meantime, it is trying. Affectionately yours, David Livingston. Well, we finally found out who the quote was from. The following is from the second letter, dated Lake Benguela, South Africa, December 1872. My dear brother, I was still determined not to give in to their villainies and to work the way down to the baker for aid. It was then that my good Samaritan Stanley, sent by James Gordon Bennett of the New York Herald, came on the scene, and his conduct was beyond all praise. I was told that Stanley would make his fortune to me, would make his fortune of me, and if he does, he is heartily welcome, for he saved me from a wearisome tramp after Baker, and probably saved my life. And if the good Lord above gives me the strength and influence to complete the task in spite of everything, I shall not grudge my hunger and toils. Above all, if he permits me to put a stop to the enormous evils of this inland slave trade, I shall bless his name with all my heart. The Nile sources are valuable to me only as a means of opening my mouth with power among men. It is this power I hope to apply to remedy the enormous evil and join my poor little helping hand in the great revolution that in his all-embracing providence he has been carrying on for ages and is now actively helping forward. Affectionately yours, David Livingston. The letter to Mr. Bennett is quite long, and though interesting, contains nothing but what we have given in other words in this book, and hence we do not insert it. Chapter 27.